This episode of the e-commerce playbook is brought to you by Mercury. If you're running an e-commerce company, there's a lot on your plate, especially when it comes to finances. From paying vendors to keeping track of cash flow, it's a lot to manage. But what if you could see everything in the same place? Say hello to Mercury, the financial software company loved by over 200,000 startups and small businesses that gives you full visibility into your business's finances. Deposit your revenue into your account, pay vendors with ease, and even get access to working capital loans all in one place. Learn more about how Mercury can help your e-commerce business at mercury.com/thread. Hey folks, welcome back to the e-commerce playbook podcast. I'm your host, Richard Gaffin, Director of Digital Product Strategy here at Common Thread Collective. And I'm joined today, he's back from the front lines as he occasionally is, maybe every couple months. We have Luke Austin, who's our VP of e-commerce strategy. He takes some time out of the trenches to come join us and kind of give us a report about what our clients are thinking and doing as we lead up, particularly in this case, to Black Friday. So Luke, what's going on, man? How are you doing?
Doing good. Happy to be here. It's funny. Richard and I were talking at the start of this and earlier today. We had a couple ideas of different things we could talk through, but then in that, I was sort of taking an assessment for myself of what is top of mind? What are the things I've been thinking about? And the back half of October in particular is just such a weird time for D2C e-commerce, and there's a lot we're jumping in between. So I'm excited to have this conversation, even for my sake today, of sort of just like clarifying the top priorities. What are the most important things, knowing that November, we're knocking on the door of November kicking off, and let's make sure we have the big, most impactful things in place. It can be easy to get caught up in all the details, which are important as well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation for that.
Yeah, definitely. So that's where we're framing this up, which is if you don't do anything else in November, December, you should do these things. And particularly in that context of, like you were saying, October is sort of a weird limbo time, and it can be easy to maybe sort of get your priorities out of whack. So it's crucial, like in this time, to of course not do nothing, but also make sure you're focusing on the right things. And so that's what we're going to walk through today. So let's talk about the first kind of one of your 5 points here, which is to offer your best offer. And part of the reason to do that is because discount percentage has been steadily increasing year over year. So talk to me about that. Why is it important to offer your best offer? Isn't that something you should always do? What's kind of the thinking here?
Yeah, definitely. So to frame it up a little more as well, like how I'm thinking about this is sort of like the pre-launch checklist for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, which is we've all spent a ton of time, even starting in July, August, planning for our Q4 strategy, whole marketing calendar. Likely heading into October, like there's a lot more buttoning up that happens. Now in the back of October, we're sort of like getting through this weird month and then having to take a step back to think through, like, are all the right pieces in place? Should I like reconsider any of my core strategy pillars as we head into Black Friday, Cyber Monday? And maybe that's the case for some folks, but these are sort of like the 5 most important things that are going to make the most impact at this point as we head into November. And so in order, and we'll kind of go through them. Offer your best offer, raise your AMER target, spend more on Meta, make content specific for higher share of wallet placements, and then send a bunch of emails. If we're doing those things, that is what's going to drive the most revenue outcome in the upcoming season. So yeah, offer your best offer, starting with that first one. This is a lot of this as well is framed up by recent conversations and the D2C index and on the podcast of data we're seeing across the larger data set. But what's clear is discount percentage continues to increase. Over the last trailing 52 weeks year over year, we're up back 10.1% year over year for those same weeks in discount percentage. So this is a larger conversation we've been having for a long time, which is new customer revenue and AMER is actually being propped up by higher discount rates for a lot of brands, which means that offering lower discounts, or at least lower perceived value discounts heading into the holiday season, is going to be really challenging to drive meaningful interest and demand. So we're going to talk about making money in terms of the AMER target you set, because that's crucially important. But the discount percentage, this is the time to offer your best offer, particularly going into Black Friday, ramping up into Cyber Monday. This is the time of year to be able to capture that demand, because it's when the other brands are doing it. And so pulling out all the stops in terms of early access offers for your core customers, your Black Friday offer, laddering up into a Cyber Monday offer. Maybe you have an early bird as well, but pulling out all the stops in terms of your best offer strategy over the course of those days. This is the time to do it. Discount percentage is just going to continue to increase, as we've seen be the case in the broader space over these recent years.
So to clarify, it's not solely we're talking about part of what we're talking about maybe is discounting or pushing your discount percentage as high as possible without, completely murdering your margin. But I mean, we're also talking about all of the elements that go into offer building, generally speaking. So, I mean, as part of what we're saying here is a little bit what we say every year, which is make your offer stand out because everybody's going to be pushing it. But maybe the idea there is that you're not really going to be able to get away with anything I don't know. I think we always say 20% or better, but maybe you want to be able to get away with 20% or something like that.
Exactly. And I think any conversations that are happening around offer changes at this point, even in relation to the different time periods of BFCM, might be along the lines of, hey, instead of doing 30% off, should we just do 25% off? And we'll make a little more margin and we don't have to be so aggressive on the discount percentage. And whatever that conversation is for your brand specifically, outside of those specific percentage, what this is really connected to the second point, which is raise your AMER target. To think about making money in relation to your media spend, your AMER target. Let the offer be stronger. If you're leaning towards, hey, let's, in that scenario, hey, should we just do the 25% instead of the 30 and sort of see what happens? Go with the 30 and let's make the money on a higher AMER target and really making sure we're allocating the right level of media spend. That's where we see a lot of the deterioration in terms of the margin outcome happen. And with higher discount rates year over year, it's just going to be more challenging for all the channels to succeed if we're sort of skimping on the offer. So pulling out the best offer in terms of the offer strategy it's not just, hey, go from the 25% to the 32% or whatever, but it is thinking about you're making the margin outcome more on your acquisition efficiency and your media allocation than the discount percentage specifically.
Gotcha. Okay. So you've alluded then to raising your AMER target. So let's move on to point 2, which is to raise your AMER target for sale days. So break that down a little bit. What are we doing here? What's the thinking behind this particular tactic?
So it's wild how different every e-commerce brand treats a key sale moment like Black Friday, Cyber Monday in terms of the efficiency they hold each of their channels to, the acquisition efficiency or AMER outcome, the level of media spend allocation. It's just wildly variable in terms of how people approach what these days should look like and the purpose that they serve to achieve the business outcome. So this point's connected. Recently on the channel, there's a podcast Tay and Richard did on title was The Addiction to Growth, Why Entrepreneurs Avoid Paying Themselves. And it's connected to that broader conversation, which is these days, specifically Black Friday, Cyber Monday, if you have an early holiday offer, these days are where brands should be putting dollars into their key shareholders' pockets. These are the days when you make money. These are not the days where we're going to keep our AMER target consistent throughout the course of November and say, hey, our break even is a 1.8, or hey, we're going for 20% first order profitability, so we're going to go for 2.2 AMER. Let's hold that consistent through the month. This is not the time to do that because there's so much discounting happening that we have to raise the AMER target accordingly. Plus, we should be capturing the margin demand on those days rather than driving as much volume as we can at break even or negative first order margin, which for some folks, this may seem like this is what y'all have been doing and are doing, but there are a lot of brands out there where these core sale days, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, there's a lot of margin dollars left on the table because there's such a priority around growth rather than using these days as a way as the core objective of making money from Black Friday,
Gotcha.
Cyber Monday and setting targets accordingly.
Yeah, no, I completely understand how that could be counterintuitive, particularly given the way that people have been behaving in e-commerce up to maybe the last couple of years. The idea that Black Friday, Cyber Monday being this primarily a volume play, And it is, but in terms of volume of revenue, not actual or money left over in your pocket. Volume of
Yeah.
profit, so to speak, maybe is the way to put this, as opposed to, you know, massively pushing your top line or getting the greatest number of customers in or something along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly right. And so how we're doing how we're doing this is our forecasting we look at historical marketing moments and events to understand how our AMER fluctuates. So how much increased new customer demand versus our level of spend we see, which allows us to know how much we can scale while holding a similar level of AMER. And then we also look at the returning customer revenue in relationship to that new customer revenue and how much that increases and changes versus a normal non-sale period. And so as a starting point, just looking at historical promotion, product launch periods, and understanding how much that AMER increases is really important. And then adjusting up the AMER target for your individual sale days to account for the higher discount rate. And if there's a higher return rate expected based on the offer that you're running. And then 2, adjusting it up further based on the margin outcome that you're wanting to see as well. So if break even's being adjusted up for a discount percentage, and then we're wanting to realize, X% profit margin on each order in addition to that, adjusting it there, because what happens, it's very normal on a day like Black Friday to push for more volume and more growth. ROAS looks great. Let's spend more. And then you look back and there's a lot of media allocation, high revenue outcome, but there's a lot of profitability left on the table because they spent past an AMER that was optimal for producing the business outcome that we are after. So setting the right AMER target, specifically raising your AMER target for those individual Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale days to a level that allows you to make money from those days when all things are considered is the first step, because the budget allocation is just going to pace accordingly downstream from that.
From paying vendors to managing cash flow, you've got a lot on your plate when it comes to your e-com business's finances. But what if you could manage them from one central dashboard? Say hello to Mercury, where you'll get a fuller picture and greater control of your company's finances. Deposit your revenue into your account, pay vendors with ease, and access working capital loans all in one place. You can even consult with an e-com specialist to help you maximize your use of cards and capital. Learn more about Mercury at mercury.com/thread.
That makes sense. Yeah. So the profit first philosophy doesn't change on Black Friday. In fact, it just intensifies. So let's roll into number 3 then, which is to spend more on Meta, to concentrate your spend into Meta in Q4 specifically. And there's an interesting screenshot that you shared with us before this, which we can maybe slap up on the screen for our viewers, which is that Google's share of wallet actually sort of starting in about mid-year, like this is last year's data, June of 2023, Google's share of wallet slowly decreases into the end of the year, having its sort of lowest valley on Black Friday itself, whereas Meta's share of wallet actually steadily increases starting in the middle of the year, peaking actually around Black Friday and then at Christmas and kind of the end of the year as well. Yeah. So part of what that's meant to illustrate is the idea, of course, that that you ought to concentrate your spend on Meta in Q4, but maybe unpack that for us a little bit more.
Yeah. And again, I think this is intuitive for most people, where the level at which we can increase scale on Meta versus Google, there's just a really different relationship there in terms of the platform's ability to scale. And that's part of it. Like this point is connected to the prior point in the case where the increase of share wallet on Meta, part of it is a much higher investment of ad dollars there because that platform can scale more, and potentially that was too much to scale in general in terms of total media mix in light of the AMER target. So I think that's worth noting as well, just in thinking about the total budget allocation. But again, we're assuming we have the right AMER target set now as the second step, and then in terms of the allocation, the large majority of that is going to go towards Meta. Google will be able to increase in scale, but the efficiency on that platform, where the performance on Google is mostly related to being able to capture demand that is already existing, and that scales at a much lower rate than Meta is able to. So anticipate spending a much higher % of your total budget allocation on those days, and having enough creative volume to be able to fuel that scale. So really the impetus for that, for expecting that, is planning the budgets accordingly and planning the creative volume accordingly for that platform, knowing that we're not going to go into Black Friday, Cyber Monday. We spend 65% on Meta, 35% on Google. So that's going to be what the allocation is. Meta is going to get a much larger percentage of that total budget, and there's going to be higher budget allocation overall. So the campaign setup, the creative volume needs to be commensurate with that expectation.
Gotcha. Okay. So, and then speaking of share of wallet, so this is interesting because it segues nicely into point number 4, which is to make Reels specific offer content. And so we have a note here of the share of wallet on that placement has been increasing dramatically. Now, it's sort of paired with the idea here that last year there was a big decline in Reels volume, I assume, in November and December. But talk us through like that, like thinking about share of wallet maybe on a more granular level in terms of placement.
Yeah. So this is another point from the D2C index, which we're able to see the change in share of wallet by placement within each platform. And it's helpful because it gives us insight into some of the platform's priorities, right? In terms of Reels, more of a priority on Meta's part, more inventory there, brand spending more in there. It's sort of like virtuous cycle in that way. So it gives us insight in terms of platform's priorities. But I think it also potentially illustrates that there's some opportunity on the placements that have increased in share of wallet, but that historically on sale days, we haven't seen that same level of increase on. And so Reels is one of those. That's another point from the D2C index, was that the Reels placement share of wallet decreased pretty substantially in November and December relative to the rest, so less distribution. And I think what's challenging about Reels placements tends to be more content hungry, more UGC, video creative, etc., versus a Black Friday, Cyber Monday toolkit. For a lot of brands, the majority of spend goes towards your ad that is just brand name, big, bright red letters, 50% off, up to 50% off Black Friday, Cyber Monday, static image. So that's necessary. But I think there's an opportunity that exists for brands to be able to capture some of the demand within placements like Reels by thinking through and planning for specific content oriented around their holiday offers that serve well within that specific placements. Because it's challenging to do, right? It's not like offer in your face, but there's ways to do it. And I think a good example, TikTok, one of the things that they've done that we've seen be that probably one of the few things that tends to work well from a conversion standpoint during these holiday periods on that platform is these like gift code sticker overlays on the UGC creative. And so able to use your discount code, leverage existing top performing UGC video creative, and then have like a sticker overlay that like fits in the placement really well, really big and bold. You can click on it easily. So ways like that within Reels, within stories, to be able to have content that's more native to that placement, but that still shows the offer very clearly as well in a way that people are aware of it, I think is another opportunity that brands who are planning for more spend on Meta and need more creative volume there, thinking about the placement specific creative as well, in addition to their business as usual evergreen sale toolkit.
Gotcha. So just to clarify then, like the idea here is that the decline in Reels in November and December had to do with maybe that particular channel getting flooded with creative that was not meant for Reels specifically, but just because everybody's trying to advertise everywhere, they kind of maybe dupe an ad into a Reels placement without actually making it Reels specific. And therefore, as a percentage or whatever, Reels usage decreases. Like, how is that?
Yeah, it's possible. I think it's harder to pull out what the specific cause of it was, whether it was not having the creative there. And so the performance wasn't there because the right creative wasn't there. And so because of that, people pulled back, or the cost controls that people using them pulled back from that placement and index more in other delivery. So is it, the creative leads to lower performance, then leads to lower distribution within that inventory? Is it not having that creative led to lower delivery just by nature of itself, or folks sort of throttling delivery within that placement as well?
Yeah.
But I do think it definitely hinges around having the right creative that's going to perform well within that placement, but that still ties in your Black Friday, Cyber Monday offer in a way that's different than here's my static ad with our site-wide offer, buy now.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, cool. All right. So, and let's go to our final point here, which is to send a bunch of emails more than you think. And that's actually a piece of advice that we've kind of harped on, just not even seasonally, but kind of like it's sort of an evergreen piece of advice is that the more emails you send, the better you do. But let's unpack this a little bit, like what it means to really send more emails than you think you need to in this period.
Whatever you did last year, do more of that as a starting point, and then add in a couple additional, and then maybe have some more in the back pocket just in case. Is generally how I'd approach it. We have on our holiday long form vlog on the site, we have a breakdown of recommended minimum send cadence for each of your main offer days over the course of Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So on your early access day, and then on your core sale day, etc. And what that looks like is, so doing like a VIP email and SMS pre-launch, day one launch day, sending 3 emails and 2 SMS messages. So on a core day, so this is Black Friday, main launch day, 3 emails and 2 SMSs. Day 2 to 4, so mid campaign, keep the momentum going with 1 to 2 emails and 1 SMS message per day. And then day 5, final day, close out with the sale urgency, send 3 emails and 2 SMS messages again. So I think that's a helpful starting point of sort of pre-launch, VIP, early access, email, SMS, launch day, 3 emails, 2 SMS, days in between, 1 to 2 emails and 1 SMS, and then final day, again, 3 emails and 2 SMS throughout the course of that day. And then within that context, thinking through what you did last year and seeing if there's additional opportunity to do resends to non-openers of any of those emails any of the other days. But I think using that as a minimum starting point is really important. There's just so much noise on every single one of these days from every brand within ad placements, within social media platforms, with the email inbox, that like the hesitation around sending more emails tends to be around potential increases in unsubscribe rates and the experience for your customers. But if they aren't buying from you when you're offering your best offer of the year, like it's less likely that they'll buy from you at another point in time, in which case the risk of them unsubscribing, it doesn't seem like too big of a risk from my perspective. Plus, your customers are getting inundated with so many other messages that the likelihood of them unsubscribing due to increased message cadence from you as well is pretty low. So like, if there's any time to pull out all the stops, this is the time. And we just haven't seen any data that increase in email send cadence leads to a substantial increase in unsubscribes that is worth the trade-off of the revenue that's being left on the table due to those additional sends.
Yeah, I think maybe another way to put it more simply is that generally speaking, more emails equals more revenue. And that's just more or less the relationship. And so, of course, at the time when you stand to make the most revenue, which is over Black Friday, Cyber Monday, it just makes sense to ramp up the thing that you can reliably, or you can rely on to generate more revenue, which is, of course, email sends. And I'm sure that there's a limit to it, but you're probably not finding it, I think is maybe the point we're trying to make.
Totally. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, so I think that kind of wraps it up for these 5. It's like, is there anything like in summary, or maybe if there's one of these tactics that you could point to as being the most important or whatever, like what would you want to leave with our listeners here?
Identifying what your AMER target should be on each individual day of November and December, since Cyber Monday is in December this year. But every single day, there should be clear, thoughtful rationale that has buy-in from the key decision maker all the way to the execution within the ad channels on why that is our AMER target for that individual day. That every day is going to behave very differently and represents a very different margin profile in terms of the discount rate, the products that you're selling, if you're doing bundles, the COGS associated with those products. And so the offers you're running in early November versus your early access days in Black Friday versus your actual day of Black Friday, all of those days have really different considerations in terms of the composition of returning new customers, the margin profile, and the product mix that necessitate AMER targets on a daily basis that reflect each one of those considerations. The channel ROAS targets and then the budget allocation should just feed downstream from that of what is my acquisition efficiency I'm going after based on my business objective. That takes all that into consideration. There's a lot of work that goes into that on our side in identifying why each day's efficiency target is set at the level it is and why that's leading to the amount of budget volume that we're pushing. And so that's, I can't stress that enough. That is what we are spending a lot of time thinking about and right now refining as we head into November to make sure each day has a clear plan. So to make sure we're not leaving anything on the table in terms of upside and revenue demand, but that we're not pushing past a point that's going to result in unprofitable top line revenue that doesn't accomplish anything for the business profitability long term as well. So that would be the main thing that I would stress, and that we're putting a lot of effort into refining and making sure each one of those days has a clear target that everyone from key decision maker down to channel execution is clear on what the objective is for their channel on that individual day.
That's right. All right, folks. Well, yeah. So if this is the type of thing you want us to help build for you, it's probably too late for Black Friday, but it's the type of thing we can help you prepare for next year, for 2025 and beyond. All right. Well, Luke, thanks again for joining us. And of course, bringing all of your insights from the front line. It's always really valuable to us, to our listeners, and for all of you out there. Appreciate you listening. We'll see you next week.